Atlantic Maine's Futures March meeting. We have a full agenda, but nothing that I would say is really controversial, but a few things that will take a little bit more time than normal. As always, just remember you've got your per diem forms here for those who need to fill the per diem forms out, and haven't been in this room for a while, but just housekeeping. Bathrooms are down the hall on the left, and we get too rowdy, Marine Patrols across the hall. So why don't we go around the table and do introductions in the room first, and then go to the online. Start with you, Jim.
Jim Norris, Public Defender. Good job.
Morning, Amanda Beal, Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry.
Bob Myers, public member from Bath.
Good morning, Catherine Robbins Halstead, public member, Searsmont.
Laura Graham, LMF Director.
Great. We'll go online. Barbara?
Barbara Trafton, public member, Brunswick.
Matt?
Mac Hunter, public member from Amherst.
Roger Burley, public member from Cliff Island.
Great, welcome everybody. And I would also like to introduce to the board and members of the public both online and in the room, our newest almost board member, Beth Schiller from Bovenkamp. Beth, if you could just wave so everybody sees you. Beth went through the confirmation hearing yesterday with the community jurisdiction, along with Catherine, for her renewal of her seat. And I understand that it was a very rowdy meeting. There was a lot of opposition. But through fine.
Just barely.
Actually, barely, but it's excellent. And so the Senate will confirm both of them later in the week. And we can finally, no.
I've been thrown out of better place.
Yeah, sure you have. I know you have, actually. But we will be saying our goodbyes at the end of the meeting to Bob Myers, who has been a tremendous asset for this. And it's been certainly a pleasure working. Thank you, Bears, here at the end.
Been a pleasure.
Right.
So why don't we jump right into the agenda, and item number 2 is the minutes of the January 30th meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the minutes of that meeting? Would anybody like to make a motion to accept that?
So
So moved. Second.
We've got moves and seconds all over the place. We'll go moved by Bob Myers, seconded by Roger. Is there any objections to the motion that's on the table? Seeing no objections in the room or online, the motion passes. And so now we will turn items 3 and 4, both fund balances and project allocations status, over to Laura. Who, by the way, got 2 rounds of applause, almost standing applause, at the Alma Town meeting this week.
wow.
So you would have thought she grew up in the town.
Well, thank you so much for that reminder, and thank you so much of that moment. Thank you, Commissioner Keller. These are the bond fund balances. These are as of February 29th. You'll notice that we do now have the tallies for interest here. You'll see that we have earned $754,881 in interest. That's through February 29th. That's just incredible. And you can see why this information reflects only the sort of the checks that have been written and cashed, right? This doesn't have anything to do with our allocations. And so you can see why, because we have almost $31 million sitting in the bank earning interest for us, which is wonderful. And so you see we have a few bond funds, and this is what we have left sitting there for the 40 million that's uncashed. Any questions about that? We'll go to that. Nobody has questions about it. Nobody ever has questions about that slide. These are the active projects and their allocations. As you can see, CNR, this is what we have allocated. Working waterfront, we have allocated. We have active projects of 29 active projects across these categories. Those active projects, we have allocated $14,616,468. Any questions about that? And then next slide. Okay, these are the fun ones. Now you get down into the nitty gritty details. You take off the set asides. As you all know, we set aside a certain percentage, 15% off the top of every allocation to cover our legal, to cover our inventories, historic, all of the things we need to access improvement grants and stewardship grants, everything we need to be able to funds. And then we have an MOU, project allocations all told of 9 million and project expenditures here. And you can see, and the reason that number allocations isn't the same as the last number is if you add those two together, the set asides and allocations, they'll be pretty close. And so you can see we have available for CNR right now a little over $6 million for project awards. That's for pure project awards. We don't have to take that and make set asides against it. That's purely available for project awards. Any questions about that? Next slide. And we'll whip through these. And the same for working farmland. This is what we have left for working farmland right now. None of this includes the interest. None of this includes the interest. 1.6, a little 1.6. Next slide. Same for working waterfront, a little over 2 million. Next slide. And water access, as you can see, a little over 1.5 million. Okay, what's the next? What do we have next? Go. Project updates. Jason, do you want to do these or do you want me to?
Before you go into
Oh.
project updates, did you show interest earned? on this?
Yes, I did. We want to go back to that first slide. There's 754,000. Yeah, yes, I did. And I also showed, I should say, on this first slide there on the green line in the middle, interest earned through February 29th. Yep. And then above that, I've never put this on a report for you before, but I thought, what the heck, it's your money. So the unrestricted LMF gifts, 360,975. Historically, we have not treated those as being available just easily for projects. We do, but they are our funds. They are unrestricted, fully unrestricted, so we can use them for administrative costs. We can use them for various things. And above that is the restricted LMF gifts, a much smaller amount. Those are gifts we received from private parties that did have some kind of restriction we have to pay attention to.
And Laura, can you just explain the 750,000, et cetera?
Yes.
Does that show up in the monies we still have to allocate either in CNR or working waterfront? Has that been?
It does not. For one, I wouldn't know how to allocate it. I understand that I think that the way to think about how we allocate is to think of, you know, that minimum, the required allocation between the subcategories of our programs, you know, the 2 million for working water access, the 4 million for working farmland, the 4 million for working waterfront. That percentage wise, we probably want to think about the interest earned from those separate subcategories as belonging to those programs, with the understanding that the CNR, the big pot, is the one that is not restricted. The legislature didn't say you must spend a minimum of $30 million on CNR. They said you must spend a minimum on these other categories, at least this much on other categories, which means we can pull more from CNR to fund these other programs. So I think maybe it's a good idea for us to think about the interest that way. So there are, if you like, I could, maybe I can't, I don't know.
This is the caveat. I mean, this is unallocated funds. So we're not bound by those categories to spend the interest within those categories. I think we need to keep that in mind.
I love that. I just don't know what we're going to be told. You're right. I love that. I love board discretion.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, to me, this is no different than an indirect or a state capital.
Pat, can you speak up? Your soft little voice isn't
Right,
coming through.
yes, please.
I have a soft voice.
Your lovely soft velvet voice just isn't coming through.
Oh, geez. Jim Norris is leaving the building. Why, thank you. I'm blushing. What I was saying is that the caveat to what the director said is that this is not funds that are truly allocated to those accounts. So I think the board has discretion to use these as we would desire across accounts or for other projects, for staffing costs, for contract costs if we had a special project. I think we've got a lot of flexibility with the use of those funds.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, was that loud enough, Barbara? I just make sure everybody can hear me. Usually the
That was
acoustic.
great.
Okay. Okay, now, any other questions on balances before we move on to projects? Seeing none, let's move right along.
All right. Jason,
You want me to do this one?
sure. You did the GIS work, dude.
Flora, her team all up before she left. But we did close the first half of the Kinnebago project. That just closed yesterday, so. We have coming up in the next couple of months,
Yes.
and not shown on there because it needs board action, but again, is the other half of Kinnebago. So lovely segue. I wish I was smart enough to plant that, but any questions on those projects?
Seeing none in the room or online? Well,
Okay, so first project everybody on today is the Kinnebago Woodlands parcel, which we are seeking again. A confirmation of the award as of the conservation easement on the property changing the appraised value. Again, this is the 5,000 upland acres, that's adjacent to the Kinnebago Headwaters Park. So we acquired by Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust in October. So got the appraisal for the value as encumbered by the conservation easement. The AOC met in February to discuss it. The value was 2 million as encumbered, down from I think it was 4.9 conservation. And it's unit value there. But
Jason, I'm
still,
having a heck of a time hearing you.
I'm very sorry. What would you like me to revisit here? You
No,
want me to do-
I'm okay. I can read it.
Okay. Okay, so we have a draft motion here for you.
I guess that's me. I move to approve the recommendation of the LMF Appraisal Oversight Committee and accept the appraiser's value of $2,810,000 as encumbered.
because that is a motion of the committee. It does not need a second. Is there any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing any or hearing any, so I'm going to read the motion back into the record prior to the vote. So the motion is to approve the recommendation of the LMF AOC and accept the appraised value of $2,810,000 as encumbered. Is there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections either online or in the room, the motion passes.
Okay, and because this is just a authorization confirmation of the previous award, there's no public notice requirement for this vote. Oops. So we have a second draft motion here for you.
Would you like to make that motion? Tim?
Yes, I move to confirm the allocation of $750,000 in conservation and recreation funding to support the acquisition, subject to the previously approved condition.
Second,
A motion by Jim, seconded by Bob. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, I'll read back onto the record. The motion is to confirm the allocation of $750,000 in CNR funding to support the acquisition, subject to the previously approved conditions. Is there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections in the room or online, motion passes. Moving right along.
And I will say, just for everyone's information, we reviewed the conservation easement, the draft of the project agreement. We are ready to go to closing pretty quickly on this.
Right. Great.
And hopefully this will be the last time the board votes on Kennedy. It is Oaks Edge Farm in Oak. Working farmland project, 98-acre easement. And in this one, they excluded the farmstead area, sort of two little rectangles or polygons on the inside are not part of the easement. They're subject to a covenant that they cannot be sold separately. And that is to maximize the flexibility for the landowner and the farmer. This is a small diversified vegetable and farm that serves local markets. The easement will be held by Jordan River Land Trust. The AOC met on March 5th to discuss the appraisal, which reported an easement value of $370,000. So we have a draft motion for it.
Bob?
I move to approve the recommendation of the LMF Appraisal Oversight Committee and accept the appraiser's value of $370,000.
Great. As committee motion does not need a second, is there any discussion on the motion? Being none, record to motion is to approve the recommendation of the AOC committee and recommend the appraised value of $370,000. Is there any objections to the motion? Being no objections being raised either in the room or online, the motion passes. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Okay, public notice was advertised in the Quebec Journal and Press Herald on March 16th. Received, and there's a second draft motion there, but after I prepared this slide, I had some communications with Georges River Land Trust, and they would like the board to consider changing that award to $185,000, which would be 50% of the appraised value, rather than the initial allocation of $177,500. In motion in the direction.
Jim?
Yes, I move to confirm the allocation of, modified allocation of $185,000 in working farmland funding to support the acquisition subject to standard conditions.
Second,
Motion by Jim, second by Commissioner Beal. Is there any discussion on this modified motion? I guess it's not a modified motion, it's the original motion that wasn't modified, we just made a motion, sorry. Any questions? Seeing none. Read into the record, the motion is to confirm the allocation of $185,000 in working farmland funding to support the acquisition subject to standard conditions. Is there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections in the room or online, motion passes. All right. Now
Oh, yeah. High Peaks Keystone, Orbiting, Phase 2. These slides will look familiar. I borrowed the slides from last time. So here we still are, High Peaks Keystone. These last remaining parcels are in Madrid. Next slide. And you'll see at the top, those little red parcels at the top, Janas, Pereski, and Gan White. These are the ones that are getting ready to close. And in fact, assuming you approve these, we'll get the contracts out today. They want to close ASAP. We have already, you've already approved all the rest of those. The gray are the match parcels, and the red ones on the bottom. Those have all those closed. So we have these remaining 3 to go. You can see the benefits of this project, that connectivity and that connectivity and attachment to existing conservation land, and it's breathtaking. Next slide. And so here you see the breakdown of the acres, the 601 acres of these 3 parcels. You can see their appraised value. You can see that the sum total appraised value of these 3 parcels is $900,000. Normally you would think, well, why are we paying up more than $450,000? We have $492,000 in match left over from that first phase. And so all told, the project match is not going to be 50-50. We're going to have more match than we need in this project. I very unhelpfully omitted the last column that showed you. I want to say it's 54% match, but it's something along those lines, 54% match, because their award is 1.85 million instead of the 2 $2,008,000. So the Appraisal Oversight Committee met on February 13th to discuss the appraisals for Phase 2 parcels, Paretsky, Gam, White, and Jeunesse, and the appraisals reported a combined value of $900,000, and the committee accepted these appraised values. We have a draft motion for you.
To approve the recommendation of the LMF Appraisal Oversight Committee and accept the appraiser's value of $900,000.
You were just yanking my chain.
$900,000 combined for all highlighted parcels.
Okay, committee motion does not need a second. Is there any questions around motion from the appraisal oversight? Seeing none online or in the room, I will read in the record. The motion is to approve the recommendations of the LMF Appraisal Oversight Committee and accept the appraised value of $900,000 for the combined projects for all Iowa parcels. Is there any additional conversations or comments on the motion? Are there any objections to the motion? If no objections either in the room or online, the motion passes.
Thank you. Good. So we announced public notice in the Kennebec Journal, Portland Press Herald on March 16th. We did not receive any comments, so there is a draft motion number 2 for you.
I move that we confirm the allocation of $784,000 in Conservation Recreation Funding to support the acquisition subject to standard conditions.
Second that.
By Roger, seconded by Jim. Are there any additional questions or comments? Being none, for the record, the motion is to confirm the allocation of $784,000 in CNR funding to support the acquisition subject to standard conditions. Is there any objections to this motion? Being no objections in the room or online, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. On to Sea Meadow Marina Fund.
The Meadow Marine, Yarmouth, Cumberland County Working Waterfront Access Protection Program. And here we are. This is the last working waterfront site in the Yarmouth Freeport area. They're going to use this money to partially pay down their mortgage. The lender knows they have to subordinate, so there's no question there. And the fisheries, oysters, quahog clams, scallops, and kelp. It is not a deep water kind of. This is a, and they did very well in the storms, by the way.
Yeah.
I think they were fine. Next slide. So the Appraisal Oversight Committee met on March 5th to discuss the appraisal. The appraisal reported a covenant value of $275,000, and the committee accepted this appraised value. So we have a draft motion for your consideration.
I move to approve the recommendation of the LMF Appraisal Oversight Committee and accept the appraiser's value of $275,000.
The motion does not need a second. Is there any discussion? Being none, for the record, this motion is to approve the recommendation of the LMF AOC and accept the appraised value of $275,000. Is there any objections to the motion? Being no objections in the room or online, the motion passes. Okay.
Here we go. We announced public notice on March 16th. We received no comments. And so we have a draft motion number 2 for you.
I move we confirm the allocation of $275,000 in working waterfront funding to support this acquisition subject to standard conditions.
Second that motion.
Motion by Roger, seconded by Jim. Is there any discussion on the motion? Being none, for the record, this is to confirm the allocation of $275,000 in working waterfront funding to support the acquisition subject to standard conditions. Is there any objections to the motion? Being no objections in the room or online, the motion passes. Okay. So we're moving along then. That concludes the projects.
Yep.
Moving along to item number 6, which is access improvement.
Yeah, this got in front of me.
Be out of order.
Yeah, slides are out of order. Want to hop over to the access? Yeah,
This thing.
sweet.
further out of order, we'll find out.
Okay,
But what these slide,
can you get to the access improvement grants?
I can, you
Well,
want.
I was gonna say, if there's no objections, we could just jump out of order, you can go to the Working Farmlands Access, which is what you had up.
Yeah, so the slide that was missing summarized the changes to the workbook
Okay,
For,
for, yes.
okay.
And the changes were very brief, I'm happy to summarize them.
That's fine.
So the primary thing is just bringing the standard conditions in the workbook in line with the CNR workbook. That's not a substantive change. The substantive change that we made after talking with Bureau of Ag staff was removing the requirement for a environmental site assessment phase 1 on farmland projects. And the reason for that is, fundamentally the intent of that program is to preserve good productive agricultural land, which by virtue of having a working farm on it, we know it is. We're not as concerned with it being, as environmentally pristine as we might with CNR. And also where it is a conservation easement project, there's no element of trying to avoid the buyer's liability with the environmental site assessment. So myself and your bag staff felt like it was really is unnecessary expense for the applicants on these projects. That is the only substantive change for the work.
Okay.
I will say that we've had some conversations about making more substantive changes to the program that may come in a future workbook, but we wanted to move forward with the RFP edition using the same, essentially the same workbook as previous years.
Yeah,
Is there a PFAS assessment? I mean, if they're not doing any environmental assessment, I know we've discussed PFAS here. How is that being looked at?
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll be able to.
Jason, I see two board members online straining to hear. I can tell that they're straining to hear. So if you could just, everybody just speak up, please.
They will be able to access the state's database of PFAS sites.
And that will be taken into consideration and brought forward. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. PFAS in general, is we're having a lot of conversations with, and Bureau of Ag is having many more that I'm not part of.
So I think we talked about this a little bit before, but just to feel a little sense of the color of what we're seeing with PFAS. For farms that aren't impacted, there's a whole spectrum of how impacted they might be. Most of the farms that we have been working, that we've identified as impacted, we've been able to find ways for them to continue operating by filtering their water, by helping their production, around a little bit. So wanted to say that that's not necessarily a write-off.
Yep.
If we found some of them. And we found, at this point, I think we've worked directly with somewhere around it. Sense of the
Yep.
scope of a state with 7,000 lives.
could I, one quick thing, also, the standard ESA omits PFAS anyway, so we're not really giving that up by giving up the ESA.
We've had addressed it on at least one of the active projects already received. We're working through that now. That's a conversation. Has to have on a case-by-case basis. Really is. The antitrust and very valid from an technical specialist at Bureau of Ag. Sure, yes, it is. We're still achieving the goal of making agricultural land. Whatever the condition of that property is.
Okay. Right. Okay. Any additional questions for Jason? Seeing none, no action to be taken here, Jason, or?
There will be action. This is the timeline on this slide that is in the workbook.
Okay.
They even call them proposals, LOIs to Bureau of Ag. This come back to the board for preliminary awards in September.
Yeah.
So we do have a motion here to issue the RFP.
Anybody like to make this motion?
Yes, I move that we adopt the WFAPP workbook dated February 2024 and issue a round 12 list map call for proposals.
Second,
We have a motion by Jim, and under the wire was Commissioner Beal. And so is there any additional questions or? Seeing none, this is motion is to adopt the working farmland protection program workbook dated February round 12 of the work. Proposals. Abbreviate, but guys are throwing a little curveball. Is there any objections to the motion? Being no objections in the room. Online. Thank you. Okay, what are we doing now?
Oh, man.
Grants and farm.
Yes.
So after the last meeting, invited all the projects that closed in 2023 to apply for grants in the amount of up to 5% of the first thousand appraised value, then 2% of the appraised value over $200,000 to a maximum of $5,000. Of these 17 projects that closed last year, all but 2 of them applied for funds, requested $1,000, and those funds have already been set aside, so that there is no new allocation. Yeah, here. Reminder, all of these projects include at least 1-to-1 match as a combination of either excess acquisition match if they had more than 50% at that stage, or their expenditures on pay improvement. Run through all of these.
Before you do, Jason, just can you remind me, does the 2 projects that did not apply for this, does that preclude them from applying at a later date? I can't.
It
recall.
does,
That's what I-
yeah. We look, it's always been a one-time.
Yeah.
Shot.
Okay, thank you.
Be barbarous.
Barbara,
Jason, I'm always curious about the 2 who did not apply. And do you have any insights into that? Was it a match problem or?
They were both BPL projects, so I'll let Rex explain what he did wrong. But yeah, showing up.
Yeah, no, probably just on that case, I think it's just that we either had other meetings or just that, sometimes we, just the offer, the windows, this with other things that we're working on. That would be, without kind of checking back on those 2 projects, that's my off the cuff response.
I know you were very, very new in the position, during that window. But those are the 2.
we go through the project.
Yeah, so we'll start with the farm improvement grant, because there's only one of them, New Leaf Farm. Requesting $11,407 to replace a metal roof on their equipment barn. And all of these applications have the support of the DSA.
Okay, and so you have how many of these?
We have this one, and then we have 14 of the access improvement grant.
Okay.
I can,
Just this one for farm?
yes, this,
Okay, what I would suggest we do is we break them out and vote on them as a block.
that's what we have done, yeah.
Okay.
I do the farm and the access improvement grant separately.
I don't know why I thought you wouldn't have done that, but. Yeah.
I move we award a farm improvement grant for the New Leaf Farm project in the amount not to exceed $11,407.
Motion by
Second.
Barbara, seconded by Amanda. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the motion is to award a farm improvement grant for the Newly Farm project in the amount not to exceed $11,407. Is there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections in the room or online, motion passes.
All right, and I did all the access improvement grants as a block, and we will lightning round these, but please stop me at any point if there are questions. So Bonnie Big Mountain, 13,300 for a parking area. Camp Guston, 13,100 for variety improvements to campsites, boat launch, outhouses, and trails. Caribou Stream, road improvements and parking areas. East Wyndham Community Forest. They've already reimbursement for work they've already done on a large parking area. And we discussed this at the staff level and saw no issue with reimbursing them for work they did last year after they closed on the project, or even before they closed on the project, as the case may be. Edward Mills, parking area and signage. Getchell Park, parking improvements to the boat ramp and signage. These are Corridor Patterson. Moving a wood that provides access to the property. Lexington Deer Wintering Area, improvements to the access road and parking areas. Muddy River Forest, hiring a conservation corps to build trails on the property. North Puritan Park, building out the existing informal trail network and adding signage. Porter Hills, several parking areas on the various parcels. Reed Deadwater, improvements to the access road and parking areas. Bayer Brook, reimbursement for a parking area that they already constructed. And last but not least, Walnut Otis Mountain, reimbursement for an access trail that they constructed, providing access to the nearest roadway. From the nearest roadway. Okay.
Before you do the draft motion, is there any questions about any of the individual projects? Being none. Okay, we have a draft motion.
I'll take a stab at it.
That's good.
Award access improvement grants to the following projects in the amounts requested with a total not to exceed $237,093. Bonnie Bag Mountain. Camp-
I don't. Projects as described.
Projects as described below. Aforementioned project.
We have a second.
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 All seconds all around. Motion by Catherine, seconded by Bob Myers. Any discussion? Being none. Motion is to award access improvement grants to the following projects, or to the projects mentioned below in the amount requested with a total not to exceed $237,093. Is there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections in the room or online, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I knew I had moved these. What I did is I didn't delete the old ones. I was like, how did these not? I didn't delete the old ones. My apologies. So you got to get through the workbook now. So it's your choice. Well done. Okay. I thought I've gone insane. Okay. All right. Rulemaking update. You all got late last night, the proposed draft rules for LMF, considerably trimmed down. These are so sparse, the way I think we all wanted them to be. You have so I've created a new timeline. If you're comfortable with these, I know you didn't have a long time to review them, but if you're comfortable with these, then we could start today. This would be the path. Taking to heart what you said about we don't need to bring them back to full board meetings. I don't have to time these events to full board meetings. We're looking at about 78 days to action. That's for the sort of the outflow. The rules themselves, the thing that switched this from being a huge document, really complicated, was switching our orientation to thinking of everything we do is basically an RFP, really laying on the RFP, and that the workbook is the RFP document. And so that means that gets to change. We don't have to, the tipping point was when we learned that if we didn't do it that way, we weren't even going to be able to incorporate by reference use PAP appraisals. And that was going to be impossible. So between that recognition and Jason with the extra whining, like, hey, that's not possible, we were able to persuade Lauren that we absolutely had to figure out a new way. And she said, oh, well, what about this? So it is as spare as you can imagine, very few definitions, and really nothing that touches the substance of what we say in our workbooks. So two things flow from this. We can be flexible each round as we draft new workbooks. And the only, which I'll leave that for now. So that's really the important thing, is that we can maintain our flexibility, and it gives us good process. One of them being addressing the timeliness of materials and the ability of staff to delegate. If you agree, delegating to staff the ability to exercise some judgment about when, is it okay to let somebody bring their submission in late if they've got good reason. That kind of flexibility on the on the ground is embedded in these rules. I'll answer any questions about the rules themselves or any of this process, if I can.
Is there any questions for? I will. I would just say that when I read this last night, one, I was happy that I actually had hot water back. So food had changed.
Me too.
But this is how I envisioned this being constructed. So I think we have moved definitely in the right way. So the excess whining is appreciated here to discover the fact that we now have a working regulatory document. Now, there are a few things in here that gave me, I'm not opposed to by any stretch of the imagination, but where we have a rule that delegates back to staff,
Yeah.
in my mind makes no sense.
Okay.
That is either a board action or from a policy. That's a policy standpoint, not
Okay.
a rule standpoint.
Okay.
And so we can, but that being said, I'm fine with this going out to the public as it is written. We can comment on the record.
Exactly.
Make adjustments if we want to after it goes through the public hearing process.
Exactly. And also we can, that I borrowed it from Lupsy. They had this. I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea, but I don't. Exactly. But it may be, now you know more about this comment. At the end, if we comment, I don't know that the comment can get us out of that rule entirely. You probably know more than I. We might be better off taking it off if it makes people uncomfortable.
I would, so you have the ability with public comment, make changes as long as they're not major,
Okay.
right? If it changes the intent of the rule itself,
Okay.
then you would have to republicize and go back out for further comment.
Okay.
To me, this would be a minor
Okay.
change.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Any other? Audrey, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner. I agree with your approach, Pat. And I did notice, of course, there's the public comment period and then the rebuttal period. Were any people, any of our partners involved in looking at these rules as you were working on them, or will this be all new to everyone when you release these?
That's how I understand it's supposed to roll out, that it's supposed to go out for view and public comment then. And then we take that into account. That's when. So no, I didn't consult with any of our partners.
No.
I consulted
Before.
with the AAG and
Yeah.
Jason.
Good.
And Tim Bokaj, I want to say, from Lupsy. Holy cow.
Okay. And to your knowledge, you're not anticipating that anything is very controversial in here. Is that correct?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
Mhm.
No.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
To me, this draft rule sets the foundation for future rulemaking. It's recognizing the authority that have been granted. LMF in statute. And while we normally wouldn't have had to do this because of the last round of law changes, there was some recognition in statute that we would have to move some limited rulemaking. So
Right.
now we've got the skeleton go up, which is a good thing.
Yes. And Lauren also noted that the rulemaking is only required for funding,
Yes,
which is
Yeah.
nice.
okay. So I think this is an FYI, there's no action that needs to be taken here. The dates that you have here, they certainly show the time frame, which is around 100 days to get to regular rulemaking, and then adding in the boards. Or just, I want to make sure that people understand the rebuttal period is not necessarily where we're going to rebut and have conversation. Rebuttal is we take the public comments, we answer the public comments in writing, and then we'll have the ability to review the staff response to those, and then we can make adjustments as we finalize everything.
Do I need your adoption to begin the process, or do you want to wait on that?
No, I don't, I mean, Commissioner Beal might have a different way of thinking about it, but I think we've, as a board, have discussed the need to go to rulemaking. Staff has developed the rule, we've been sent the rule package. If there's no objection to the package, I think by consensus, you can move forward.
Okay,
You know,
Okay. okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
That good clarification. Good. I won't sit around and wait for further, good,
Get to work, yeah.
good, good. Thank you. Crack the whip. Very
Okay.
good. Good.
AOC update.
Yeah, AMC updates. This is well, our thoughts. Our thoughts are we're down to one woman standing, and everybody from the AOC, everybody from the state has expressed different ideas about how we might manage this more efficiently. And one of the ways that, in talking to Barbara, talking to Jim, one of the ways that we thought we might be able to proceed efficiently would be if we were able to hire a review appraiser, a contractor review appraiser, much the same way we contract with attorneys to help us close, much the same way. And that review appraiser then could be the expertise we need to help streamline the work. The AOC could still exist to receive that review, or and this would be, I think, Jason's vote, or staff could receive the review appraisal. But that there would still need to be some eyes on it. And the emphasis here being that the nature of our review would be a technical review for compliance, period. So we wanted to share our thoughts and wonder what your thoughts were. If you did a thing like this, that would take a little while. That would probably go out to an RFP, as Commissioner Keller had pointed out to me. In the meantime, we still have appraisals that need to be reviewed, and we would need a stopgap measure. People would be willing to serve until we. So that's all I had to say about that. I turn to you.
So just Laura and I had an opportunity to talk about this. I know I suggested you talk to your commissioner. I don't know if you had an opportunity.
No.
Yet, because time is tight.
Yes.
We need to talk.
Yeah.
Conceptually, I really like the idea of having that technical expertise. I mean, we have had great internal expertise, and certainly Jim Norris had made a career of appraisals and doing appraisals. So having that expertise on the board has certainly been a big plus. It's also indicated to me he'd like off the AOC, not for lack of interest, but just understanding the workload. And the workload, it's been clear every time we finish a board meeting, how many AOC meetings are taking place in the interim.
Yep.
And the AOC in my mind is always, it is just that, it's an oversight committee, right? It's fact checking, it's making sure that there are no glaring issues that would be coming back to the board. Not to redo an appraisal,
Right.
so,
Um, I obviously like the idea, but I think that there's the potential for a review appraisal. When we look at Forest Legacy project, for instance, or any project that requires a review appraisal, because it's potentially a yellow book appraisal. Pretty clear that those folks are doing a review very similar, quite frankly, to what our staff does and we do. And one of the concerns I've had over time, and it's, again, I speak just for myself, is that dealing with errors of omission and dealing with, where do you draw the line between what we're doing and what we might have concerns about. Our stakeholders told us, no uncertain terms, that they didn't want us to redo appraisals, but there are situations where it seems to me that do have a review appraiser, that they need a little more ability to get back to the original appraiser and say, look, why did you pick these 5 sales, or, some fairly broad questions, but up until now, we haven't really done much of that, simply because that wasn't in our charge. And I think there'll come a time when, if we continue to be just that limited. I mean, I'm satisfied. I can't speak for the others, that our staff does a very careful job checking boxes. And, we generally don't go much farther than what they've accomplished. So with the review appraiser scenario, I, again, personally feel that should take a tiny step or step forward from what we currently do. It's not easy and may not be entirely appropriate, but I'm concerned about that.
any additional, Bob?
Well, I think with the review appraiser, number one, they may be constrained in what they can do by their professional standards. And then the other part is, as we know in watching these groups try to line up appraisers, it's a seller's market. And who are we gonna find who can do these things in a timely manner?
Yeah.
And crank the work out?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, certainly the the need for appraisers is at a fever pitch right now, right? So,
Yeah.
Very exciting profession.
yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I've got, online, I'll go to Barbara and then Matt.
Thank you, Commissioner. When I initially signed up to be on the AOC, I was thinking that my experience with comps and appraisals in the real estate market would add some value, but it became clear to me that that the discussion around the role of the AOC was really not to evaluate the comps, was not to bring in our own comps, was not to try to act as another appraiser. And so the time that we all spent reading those appraisals, began to outweigh, I think, the value that we really were bringing to the eventual decision. And even in those cases when we asked some questions, sometimes the appraiser responded in good faith and sometimes not in very good faith. But at the end of the day, our concerns, were such that we didn't feel that it should hold up the process of moving these projects forward. So I have come to feel that the AOC would be better as sort of a board of appeals. In other words, if the staff flagged an appraisal as having a distinct problem, or if we used a review appraiser and that appraisal flagged problems, that there still could be a role for an AOC to really step in at that point more to resolve those issues and to recommend a path forward.
Thank you, Barbara. Matt?
I guess I would start by seconding what Barbara just said about the AOC becoming a Board of Appeals sort of thing. I raised my hand, but basically I think Bob said what I was going to bring up is that it sounds fine in principle, but I worry about the cost, both in terms of dollars and time.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions here from the board? Laura, do you have?
Just quickly, the thing about review appraisals is that they are much lighter lift. They're much lighter lift. And so it may be that turns out to be prohibitive, but it may not. I'm thinking that with an RFP, we may be able to find somebody who is very happy to take this relatively light lift and do this for us efficiently. And I do also love the idea of the AOC as an appeals kind of process where there are questions. I do not love the idea of staff being looked to provide you all with anything beyond compliance. We can do compliance all day long. Judgment, that's your job.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, and I've always been a little bit leery about, as we've shifted the AOC role, it becomes certainly dependent on staff to provide more and more information on the project. So I think the compliance comment here is really important to keep in mind. The review in itself, I would assume would also aid staff
Very much so.
from the standpoint of compliance and workload.
Very, very much so.
I don't think we can rectify this here today, but I think the board's role here is to provide, frankly, is to provide input to the commissioner to my right. Any decision on contracting and whether the agency would want to move forward. So I think at this time, unless there's additional comments, I would suggest that staff talk internally with agency leadership, run this through a little bit more, and then maybe we finalize the conversation at the next board meeting.
Sounds good.
That sound good? Okay, great.
Commissioner, I think we have an interim problem here because the two men have left me to stand alone on the AOC. We do have some appraisals coming in, so I think we need a couple of board members to volunteer to join me and in this interim period before we resolve this issue going forward.
Knowing how able you are, Barbara, I am shocked that you need help. But with
I
that
really
in
was
mind-
looking to the women on the board to be.
Well, in that case, I'm sorry to inform you that Jim said that he would stay engaged for a little while longer. But if there is additional interest, Catherine is raising her hand, so Catherine is willing to step up into the AOC role, so I will deem you so anointed as from the chair role to keep the flow going. So I appreciate that and Jim's time, and then let's have this further conversation, and then if there are other board members who well, I'm looking at him. If there are other board members who are interested, please don't hesitate to reach out to me to help find time to relieve a date certain time to relieve Jim. Great, I appreciate that, and Catherine, thank you for your willingness to step up. Okay, moving right along, round 12 proposals.
Thanks.
So yes, our round 12 proposals closed last Friday and got 17 proposals for a total of $5.2 million in development funds. So recall from the earlier slides that we have about $6.2 million available. Those projects are proposing 6.1 million in match, and those they encompass a little bit shy of 6,000 acres across 9 counties, as you can see on the map. And we are currently in the process of reading through those proposals, asking follow-up questions, and finding staff scores, but certainly get you your scoring packets before the May meeting.
Oh, well before, not 10:30 at night.
Great, any questions around round 12 proposals? Being none, staff update.
Yes, so we have leftover because the rules wasn't this great big complicated octopus of a thing. I had asked you guys to put a pin in the public access discussion, and Commissioner Keller had suggested an outside workshop, something we do outside of regular board time. And so that's still a thing that needs to be addressed. I've heard from the people who wrote us the memo, and I know I've heard from board members who were interested in making sure we address this issue. So I don't know if you want me to say more at this point.
No, I mean, this is such a big topic. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces to this. Didn't seem like trying to pick this up as an agenda item at a regular board meeting to be the best use of our time. We may not be able to thoroughly get through it all. So my thinking was that we think about a standalone meeting after we do the May 14, 16 scoring, maybe sometime in June for a special board meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And did you want staff to be reaching out to partners to draft that agenda at this point, or do you want to wait?
I think that is a very subtle reminder. I appreciate that.
Nothing but
Yeah.
subtle.
Yeah, so my thinking, with our conversation yesterday, in preparation for today, was that staff could have those conversations with our partners and start to develop a draft agenda for that, bring it to us in May and approve the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Next.
for the subtle.
Yes, sir.
Matt.
Yes, I would ask that perhaps we try to do some sort of poll to find out available dates for us rather than just pick one and have a number of us not able to attend. I'm sure may be difficult to get everybody there, but it'd be nice to have an exercise to figure out an optimal date.
Yeah, I think if you guys could send a doodle poll out or something.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, good recommendation. Matt.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Senior planner position updates. It's me and Jason and Julia right now, and we are so looking forward. We have interviewed some wonderful candidates. I'm in the process of filling out some HR forms necessary to move the process to the next step, which is good news. I'm feeling so hopeful. And East Grand Weston updates, there's not really much in the way of updates. They're working their way through the negotiations to finalize the relocation of a right of way. When it's done, I'll bring that back to you as well, but this is just FYI for us. And I think that is it for updates.
Any, and here are your dates for your upcoming meetings.
Yep. There you go.
2 meetings in the AOC in April, with board meetings on 14th and 16th. And a doodle poll coming out for a special board meeting.
Yes.
On public access.
Yes.
Any additional items from the board that are not on the agenda?
Oh, and the land trust in Topsom on the 26th of April, I want to say. I sent you guys an email about the gathering. Maine Coast Heritage Trust sponsors this Maine Land Trust Network thing.
Okay,
Sorry to disrupt the flow.
there's nothing else to be brought before the board. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So move.
So moved all around. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your time on the effective matter. Have a good day.
Thank you.
So AOC meetings, are those remote, are those in person? Remote. Those are remote, okay.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll just be
They're
given
remote.
those information to review and.
We'd get it to you 2 weeks in advance, 2
Yeah.
weekends in advance. And, yes, and I'll send you the, sort of the, not the ground rules, but like the
Yeah.
thing we agreed to
Yeah.
do and not do.
Because I do not have
Boundaries.
any experience. and
Exactly.
that's, yeah.
No, you'll be good. It's,
Okay.
they're
The real-
really not.
Getting through the appraisal.
Yeah, I've
But-
seen appraisals attached to.
A lot of them, you know, this much is.
Yes.
And then this much is.
Like, legal and all that.